So, so I don't know if you guys can read this. Whether now or later, the hard truth is everybody eventually downsizes. So it is 100% statistical fact. All of us will die. And so it's not something we like to talk about. And in fact, as a realtor, there's been good and bad times for us when we go out to see our clients. A lot of times we go there and they said, it was so wonderful. Mom told us exactly what to do, how everything should unfold, and to make sure and call you guys and you would take care of everything. And, so it's, for them, they were very happy. There's other times, unfortunately, it's quite a bit. We go there and they say, it has been a nightmare. We've been going through all this stuff. We've been trying to figure out, what to do with things and what to do. And, it's been like 3 years going through all this. So what I'm hoping today is after this, you guys are more like that first scenario where the kids and those that you love said, it's so wonderful. Okay, so with that, time to bring up my panel and go ahead and pick any seat that you'd like. All right, so what I'm going to do is start off by having them each introduce themselves, give you a little bio, tell you why they like what they're doing and why they're doing it. So Jody, you're on this end. Let's start with you.
Okay, sounds good. First thing, I have to turn this on, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I work on a boat, and I'm usually used to using my outside voice, so I'll try to make this work. Good morning. I always start off with Hauka Miminu Kaminue and acknowledge the Kumeyaay, the original people of this area. My name is Jody Wilson. I work for Funerals Your Way. I'm a licensed funeral arranger, and I'm also a service attendant and a burial attendant on boats at burials at sea. You want me to tell history?
Just real short, because
Okay.
we have a really long program.
We do. My grandmother was a medicine person, so I've been around ceremony most of my life. After I finished a career in education and archaeology, I decided to do something that I felt was very, very meaningful, and working in the funeral industry has allowed me to do that. So thank you for inviting me, and welcome to everyone.
Judy. Okay. Let's see, I don't have an outside voice, so I hope you can hear me. My name is Judy Schnack. Quickly, I've been a nurse for almost 100 years, and I've always been interested in end-of-life work. I think I took my first class back in the 70s. I became a nurse practitioner in 1989, and I began to work with veterans that had AIDS. And that was before there were good drugs.
I can't hear you very well.
Okay, louder. Okay, closer.
Yeah.
And then I retired from there and was a grandmother for a while. And when my granddaughter started going to preschool, I said, okay, I need to find something else. So I went to work for Hospice of the North Coast. And I did that for 9 years, and I retired again. But can't get away from it. So before I retired, I started volunteering at Pacifica House, which is a hospice house that the hospice owns up in Carlsbad, and I'm still there today. And then I also began to volunteer for End of Life Choices, California. And we'll talk to you a little bit about that. It's about how to help people access medical aid in dying. And I'm just delighted to be here today because I think this information is really important. So thank you all for being here. And thank you, Christy and Rip, for arranging it.
And Janet.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Janet Hager, and I'm with Hemlock Society of San Diego and A Better Exit, two kind of end-of-life right-to-die organizations. And what brought me to those organizations is kind of threefold. I am the daughter and wife of veterinarians. And so my entire life, I've been exposed to euthanasia and always felt it was the compassionate thing to do to provide a peaceful death. And then I worked as a physical therapist, And I worked primarily in geriatric rehab, and there I found that many people at the end of their lives were in miserable situations. So at a young age, in my early 20s, I said, oh my gosh, we treat our pets better than we treat our people in this country. And that sat there with me for a very long time. And then my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2013, and he was one of the lucky ones who lived for about 6 years with the disease. But at the end of his life, he decided to choose medical aid in dying. So he got the medication, and I saw a change come over him as soon as he had it in his possession. He knew he had control if he could not endure what he was going through. Turns out he didn't utilize it, but I saw what that did for him, and I decided this is where I want to work. I want to work, after his death, I decided I wanted to work in this end of life and trying to be an advocate for expanding medical aid in dying. And I, too, appreciate you inviting me.
So obviously I'm Rick Levander. After my former life, I was a chemical engineer and did a lot of environmental work. I quit doing that because I was on the road most of the time and I left San Diego. So Christy said, join me in real estate. I had no idea. I knew how to spell real estate, that was it. Did that for a while. And what I started to spend a lot of time learning was how we as humans think, how we make decisions. I found that to be really interesting. And about 3 years ago, Christy said, I'm changing real estate. We're going to only address seniors from now on. And I said, I'm happily married, so I said, do whatever you want, dear. And she stopped and she got a little upset with me. She said, so, let me ask you a question. How many people's homes did you sell last year? What were their ages? And I said, I don't know, like mine, maybe. And she said, no. She said, what were their ages? And I said, I don't remember. And she said, you only sold one house. The owner was under 65. I went, whoa, maybe I got some things to learn. So we started learning this, and the reason that I got the legacy piece of this was pretty much my own doing, because I was wondering what it really was, how our brains work, right? What is the neuroscience behind it? So I'm going to talk about 2 minutes on that stuff.
So before we actually start and ask the panel, I'd like to have Sandra wave or stand up. Sandra's been Rick and I'd like to call you like our muse. It's like she's really enlightened us. She gave us so much information on this topic. And she shared some thoughts that I'd like to read. Oh, also before I do that, in the package, she also shared the Graceful Exit resource page. So that is compliments of all her research. So, announcing, okay, time for me to read this now. Sandra's thoughts on end of life and dying. The reason I have a passion for this topic is that I value my freedom, my ability to choose life, and choose how I want to complete and have a good finish. I want to feel complete and have a sense of beauty and peace and legacy. This means, as in all else, planning. When I leave behind in our world, our Earth Mother, our families, and friends, does my leaving burden them, inspire them, cause them distress? For the people I say I love you and care for you, what is my final gift? How do we change the culture to talk about dying? That it's natural, maybe not easy, but it's important. An expression of acceptance and love. You are the brave ones. You come to this topic and you will be empowered to bring this change to your families and group of friends. So legacies to consider is donation, ease of gifts to family, letters, videos, special songs, quotations, and memorable traditions. Thank you, Sandra, for putting that so eloquently for us to start this presentation. You're awesome. So with that, I know legacy falls at the end of living, dying, and leaving a legacy, but we're going to start with legacy at the start. And so Rick, I'm going to address this to you. Will you share with us the psychology of legacy?
Sure. I don't think legacy comes at the end. We're all hardwired to care about what we leave behind when we're gone. The neurochemistry that drives animals to procreate their genes is what drives you to care about your legacy. The mammalian limbic system releases happy chemicals. We do things that promote reproductive success. When we do things that promote reproductive success, we generate more happy chemicals. You may not care about reproductive success, but your happy chemicals do. The brain focuses on your legacy without intent because it stimulates your happy chemicals. Now, animals lack a prefrontal cortex. They can't think about the future, and they don't understand how the world would exist without them. Instead of conscious intent, they grapple with one survival challenge after another. Now, because you conceptualize your own mortality, you master survival challenges in creative ways. Legacy will emerge from the real creativity you've applied to real challenges.
Thank you, Rick. Will you also share, often it's thought that it's the rich and famous that leave a legacy, but everybody really leaves a legacy, don't they? Can you tell us a bit more about legacy?
Yes, I talked with some of my, I guess, can I call you colleagues now? Up here. I'm going to leave the money part to them, but the piece I'd like to get to is the emotional piece. Usually when I talk to people about legacy, they cloud the conversation with things like finance and legal things, and no mention of emotion. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that. It helps when you realize that the good things we have today are because the people before us planted seeds. They did not always live to see their blossoms. Now, Vincent van Gogh died without earning a cent. The only thing he earned was ridicule for his work. Christopher Columbus died without knowing he discovered a planet. Greg Mendel discovered genetics. Some of the stuff was, anybody know or heard of Greg Mendel? Fantastic. Well, he was a Catholic priest working on biology and the math in obscure isolation to discover genetics. It was 20 years after his death before he was actually credited with discovering genetics. Last year, on his 200th birthday, scientists exhumed his body to analyze his DNA. Look to your neighbor and say, now that's legacy. I'm going to end this with, there was a time when time was pretty much unavailable to us. Because our lifetimes are increasing, the time we have is increasing too. So I'll just leave you with this thought that you may want to consider spending a little more time with your legacy and maybe release some of those happy chemicals.
Thank you. Judy, would you speak on, so there's other ways to leave like a final gift for the future generation, and I'd like you to share a bit about one of them.
Well, I guess the first thing, my husband died in 2013, and he never told me what he wanted, but he just said he wanted a marker. So as time went by, I became involved in this community, serving on the senior commission, and I still had that problem of getting him a marker. So I bought a bench in the community park, and there is a plaque there that we put with his name and how much we missed him and how much we loved him. So that was the first thing I did. And then he was at the end of his life, he was a professor, and he valued academics. So I started a scholarship fund for him at the University of Wisconsin, where he was working. And then the last thing is really for me. When I retired from from getting paid every day from hospice, I decided I wanted to write some things down for my children because they didn't know everything about me, nor my husband. And so I began to write with a group, and it turned into a memoir. And then last year I had a little presentation and gave them each a copy of the book. But I thought, you know, it's important that we write things down for them or somehow leave them with something, because otherwise it gets lost. And I think it's important for the generations to know where they come from. Anyway, that's a whole other thing, and all kinds of ways to do writing, but I think it's really helpful to leave some things in writing for your children. Thanks.
So Judy, thank you. I know from myself, I really feel fortunate that I took my father's sister out to lunch and interviewed her about where Grandma came from, and also on both my dad's side and mom's side, and had somebody do an ancestral tree that I've been able to pass on to my siblings, and then they are passing it on to their kids and their kids. So it's sometimes just as simple as taking somebody out to lunch in your family and learning a bit and being able to pass that on. Okay, let's move on to living. So living is really more than just a passage of time. It's really experiences that we have in this journey, which were shaped. So Judy, I'd like you to tell us, you know, a lot of people as they get older think they're pretty useless. And I'm sorry, I said Judy and Janet. I apologize. So Janet, will you speak on whether we're useless as we get older?
Sure, there's a lot of J's up here.
I know there is. Yeah, we need to have Rick Steve start with a J.
Right. So, you know, as we get older, we can become useless, but we don't have to. The control is really ours. And I'm going to give you my own personal example because it's what worked for me. When my husband died in 2019, my world was shattered. And we had no children, I have no family that lives locally, and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? We had retired when he got his diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. That was a full-time job. And so I hadn't been working for 6 years. My job had been to make his life as happy as I could. So I really examined my life and thought, where are my interests and what do I want to do? Sitting in grief was something that I needed to do for a while, but it was not going to serve anybody else, and it wasn't serving me very well. So the first thing I knew was that I wanted to help with pancreatic cancer in some way. So I decided that on the anniversary of my husband's death, that I would hold a walkathon. I'm not a fundraiser, but I held a walkathon in my little neighborhood, and people came out in force. People from not even locally donated money to Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, and we raised $10,000. The second year we raised $20,000. So, and then I also was approached by David Surgeon, who is at the University of California, San Diego, and he said, Janet, UCSD is one of 14 cancer centers in the United States that's working collaboratively to try to improve the experience and the outcome for people with pancreatic cancer. We'd really like to add a patient advocate, a patient advisor to our group, somebody that's been a patient or a caregiver, and you can tell us from that side of the table what it is we need to improve our program. So I've joined that group. We meet weekly, and I'm a valued member, and they listen to me, and they make changes. And then I knew as a physical therapist that I loved that world, and so I wanted to go back to working at a PT gym. So I ended up becoming a volunteer at Scripps. One afternoon a week, I'm there. I support the therapist in things that they need. I encourage the patients, and it puts a big smile on my face every time I'm there. And then lastly, I had made a promise to my husband when in his final 6 days in a coma that I would work to expand California's medical aid and dime. I'd work to expand our law. So about 2 months after he died, I joined the Hemlock Society. I began writing pieces for them, opinion pieces, letters to editors. And then I was asked to join the board about a year after I became a member, and I became the treasurer. And recently our president stepped down and I'm now the interim president. From my association with that group, I met a lot of people like me that are like-minded that thought our law is too restrictive and we want to see it expand. And so we joined and we started a nonprofit. And I find myself on a regular basis in a Zoom meeting with a state senator or assembly member trying to expand the law. So 4 years ago, did I ever think I would be doing this? No. My point to you is find your passions, find your interests, and then find ways that you can work in that, because it will not only help and serve other people, it will enrich your life. So if you like kids, find a way that you can volunteer reading to children, or if you like plants, go work at the botanical gardens, or animals, go to the Humane Society. Find your ways, it will enrich your life.
So Jenna, that's really wonderful. It's really been a journey. So it's kind of like you start with one passion and it kind of led to other things, but you don't start with this great big legacy of what you're leaving. You start with what you enjoy doing or what you're passionate about. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm also wondering, so a lot of us avoid talking about death. You know, we'd rather stick our head in the sand. It's too depressing, traumatizing. Why should we talk about death while we're alive?
Right, there's no question we are a death-phobic society. We'll avoid it at all costs. And so it's really twofold. For you yourself to talk with others, with your loved ones, your friends, your faith community about death, it helps you formulate things that you might want as your life is coming to an end, or the ways you want your death to go, or what you want done after you die. And so it's one way to kind of formulate that. It's also, it's a wonderful gift that you leave to your loved ones. If you sit down and you talk to them about your wishes and what you want done after you die. You know, for those of us who don't do that, and our family finds themselves in a crisis situation where, you know, mom is dying and none of us know what it is she wants, you're taking an already emotionally charged time in your life and you're making it worse and harder for them if you haven't talked to them. It can be a difficult conversation to have, but you can lighten that. You can, in your approach. You know, you can say, I know that you probably don't want to talk about this, but we really need to talk because all of us are going to die. I'm going to die sometime, and I'd like you to know what my wishes are. It's important to me. Please have this conversation with me. And so it's something that you can give them that will make that time in their life when they have to have you leave their life, it will make it a much smoother journey, and there's no guessing about what it was, you know, your spouse wanted, your mom wanted, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's nice to make those choices before you actually have to. You know, when you're under a lot of stress. Rick doesn't know I'm going to share this, but years ago, they thought they had ovarian cancer. And we didn't have a trust, and we didn't have an advance directive. And I said, I'm not going under the knife until we put that in place. And Rick really had kind of a tough time with the advance directive. And he goes, just fill out yours and I'll get mine later. I'm like, no, we're doing this together. So, and it was really stressful because they wanted me in there quick. And so we had to act quickly. And so, you know, I wish that we had done it way before that. Luckily, I didn't have it, but you know, it's like, just take time to do that. And so communicating that's really important. We're going to go on to dying, and Jenna, I'd like you to share the difference between medical aid in dying and euthanasia, more from the legal side.
So euthanasia is what we all know. If we've had a pet that we've taken to be euthanized, the veterinarian, so the medical provider, provides a lethal dose of an IV medication and the animal dies peacefully and quickly. In human medicine, we don't have that. What we have here in California is medical aid in dying, and we're lucky to be in a state that has it because there are only 10 states and Washington, D.C. that have medical aid in dying. And while the providers provide you with a prescription of a lethal medication, they don't administer it in any way. It has to be self-administered. In your packets is a fact sheet about medical aid in dying. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the law. Our law went into effect in 2016. On average, about 500 people a year utilize medical aid in dying. This past year, it increased to about, or in 2022, it increased to about 850, and that's because the law changed slightly. Instead of people making verbal requests that they want medical aid in dying 15 days apart, they can now make it within 48 hours, or 48 hours apart or more. So it allowed some people that had made their first request but hadn't made their second request the opportunity to get the medication and use it. So more people used it. But to qualify, you have to be an adult, you have to be 18 years or older, you have to be a resident of the state of California. 2 states, Oregon and Vermont, have done away with their requirement that you are registered in the state, that you're a resident of that state. So people from Idaho can go to Oregon if they can make the trip and get medical aid in dying if they meet the other regulations and they take their medication in Oregon. So you have to have less than 6 months to live. You have to have a terminal diagnosis and your physician expects you to die within 6 months. You have to be of sound mind and know what it is you're asking for. And this has to be self-administered. So, and it is something that's ingested, and the California Medical Association decided that ingestion can be something that's introduced any place within the GI tract. So for people who can't swallow any longer, because it's a fluid, it's 5 powdered medications put into 2 to 4 ounces of fluid. So it can be swallowed, but if you can't swallow, it can be introduced through a feeding tube, or it can be introduced through a rectal tube. Now the person still has to be able to push the plunger. So it's in a syringe, and the patient has to be able to push the plunger. So for many people, you can see that you put some of these in combination and they're not eligible. If you have a dementia, by the time you're within 6 months of dying, if that's your sole diagnosis, you're not going to be of sound mind. So you will not be able to utilize medical aid in dying. For people who have some neurodegenerative disease like ALS, who lost the ability to swallow and may not have extremity function anymore, they may not be able to push the plunger. So that's where I'm trying to work to expand our law. Other interesting facts about medical aid in dying are that it does not negate anybody's life insurance. Our law made sure that that was the case. This is not suicide. And on the death certificate, it's the underlying disease process that is listed as the cause of death. So had my husband utilized medical aid in dying, his cause of death would have been pancreatic cancer. Nowhere on the form does it show medical aid in dying was utilized. So that's kind of the legal.
So we're going to go to Judy to share, because you've had lots of personal experiences of this. Will you share some of that with us?
Sure. I think I left some brochures out on the table, but I belong to a group called End of Life Choices California. And our goal is to help people access the law. And so we have a phone number that you can call. It used to be every day, now it's Monday through Friday, but the caller is taking care of people who are calling throughout the state of California, so that's 40 million people. And people call, oftentimes it's adult children who are calling for their elderly parents. They either need help finding a doctor who is agreeable and supportive to do this, or they need a hospice that is going to help them, because doctors can say they opt out and don't support it for a variety of reasons, or hospices can also not support it. And so we have a list of resources that we have access to, and we'll direct people with doctors and hospices that we know will help them. And, so it's not something that can be done quickly, even though they changed the law to the 48 hours. If you're getting a new doctor, he needs to look at your records and determine your eligibility. We try to, talk to people about their medical condition to find out if they are eligible indeed. And it's a tough call when, they're not eligible, and a lot of angry people. So maybe the law will change. But we have a cadre of volunteers throughout the state. We have periodic trainings, and the volunteers are able to be assigned to people who kind of need hand-holding or direction in the process, because it is a lot of, you have to do things in a certain way. There's several requests, and, being with the doctor and getting things in on time. And so the volunteers can make home visits to help people if the family or the client needs some more guidance. And it's helpful to meet somebody beforehand and not show up at the door on the day of death. And that's something else that we do. A lot of families call us because they have the medication in hand and they don't want to mix it themselves. It's just not something that they want to be involved in or that, had any part of. And so we will go and kind of guide the family, but mix the medication for the client, and then, be supportive, but they take it themselves. And I don't know how many, I've attended a number of deaths, and you never know how it's going to work out. But I have to say, I've seen, I've seen just natural deaths that is part of hospice. I've seen an ICU death, which was my husband, which was awful. And I have to say that this medical aid in dying is just like going to sleep. It really is. And if you ask people how they want to die in their sleep. And to me, this is sort of the way to do it. And I don't know what else I can tell you. It's consumer driven, so it's becoming more and more popular. Is that the right word to say? Because people just don't want to put up with the endless suffering that can go on with a long illness. The diagnoses that are most common are end-stage cancer and some of the neurodegenerative diseases like ALS. And I think this last year we had end-stage cardiac disease was also up there then with with cancer and the ALS. So, and it's a big state, and things like this, meetings like this, get the information out, because there are so many of us, and so many people don't know about it. Doctors plead ignorance. There are groups that won't have anything to do with it because of religious reasons. And so education is probably the most important thing, so that people understand that this is a right that they have, and they don't have to undergo needless suffering. And that's the main reason that I do this, is because I've seen suffering for years, and it's just not necessary. Anyway.
Thank you, Judy. So it's not our intent to push end-of-life choices, but I wanted everyone to understand options. At the beginning of the year, when Judy came over to my home and shared it with some friends, I didn't have a clue about what some of the different options were. So please know that that was my intent in having these explained. So the next, we're going to go to Janet. And I'm going to talk about advanced directives. Could you explain what an advanced directive is? Did I say Judy? It's Janet. Okay. I'm going to make sure I get my days right. If you'll just explain what it is and what the steps are involved. Thanks.
Sure. So an advanced directive is really just a document that accomplishes two things. So let's look at the two separate things. The first thing it does is it gives you a way to say what you do and don't want in the way of medical intervention when you can no longer speak for yourself. You're either in an unconscious state or you're extremely confused and you can't make your medical decisions. So your wishes can range anywhere from seeking all medical options, and that makes sense for people who are young and healthy, it may make sense to have all medical options available. You can choose a natural death. So for people who are, getting older and maybe have some health issues, we might decide that we don't want to have CPR, that we don't want to go on a ventilator, we don't want to have dialysis, we don't want to have a feeding tube, no transfusions. You can make those, you can stipulate that. Those are things that, interventions that you decide that you would not want, you just want to be kept comfortable until your natural death occurs. And then you can make provisions so that you hasten your death. Again, if you're older or you are, have multiple medical issues, you can stipulate that you would want to have, if you become unconscious, you can have all treatment withdrawn. So if you have high blood pressure, stop blood pressure medication. If I'm diabetic, stop insulin. Don't want any treatment whatsoever. And you can also say that you wouldn't want to have antibiotics if you were to have an infection. You can say that you wouldn't want to be provided nutrition or hydration. You just simply want to be kept comfortable until your death occurs. And then now there are dementia directives that you can add to your advance directive that will outline what you want in each stage of dementia, so in the early, mid, and late stages. And both End of Life Choices California and Hemlock Society of San Diego, we have advance directive templates, information, dementia directives. I really think one of the very best directives, dementia directives that I've seen is on Compassion and Choices website. And so that's also something that people are now adding to their advanced directives.
What was that again? Could you repeat that, please?
The Compassion and Choices?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that .org or .com? Do that? Well,
One of those.
okay. I'd go with
It's probably, yeah, if you just put in Compassion and Choices, believe me, it will pop up. So some advanced directives are prepared by attorneys. Oftentimes when we have our wills made or we are putting together a trust, an advance directive will be a part of that. But you can certainly do your own advance directive. Again, all you have to do is Google advance directive or Google dementia directive, and you will have a multitude of websites and information to look through. And I encourage you to do that research. Look through them and see the one that seems to fit best and fit your needs. And really all the state of California requires to have an advance directive is that it's either notarized or you have two people witness your signature. And those two people shouldn't be family members that are going to inherit your estate. And it shouldn't be your healthcare provider, but otherwise, you can have neighbors, friends, they can witness. So that's the first piece. The second piece, and I think the most important piece, is you have to decide and find the person that's going to speak for you when you can't speak for yourself. And a lot of people say, oh, that's easy, I'll just have my spouse do it, or I'll have my oldest son do it. But they may not be the best choice. And here's why. You need that person to be assertive. Because especially if you said that you want to hasten your death in the event that you become unconscious, then that person is probably going to have to battle the medical profession a little bit, because they're going to want to intervene. And that person's going to have to say, no, here's the advance directive. My mom did not want to have hydration. And so you need somebody that's assertive. You need somebody that's available. So they need to be somebody that, they don't need to necessarily be local, but they need to be very attentive to answering a phone. They need to be, it's nice if they're in the same time zone, because oftentimes, decisions have to be made very quickly. So you need somebody that's available, and you need somebody, this is the most important thing, if this is your only takeaway, take this away. They have to respect your decisions. So they may not, if you have a daughter that says, oh mom, I can't do that, I cannot have them withhold hydration from you, that's cruel. She's not the right person to be your proxy or your surrogate when you can't make those decisions. And so if you can't, find somebody within your own family that can respect and says, yes, I will make sure that, what you've spelled out is what happens, then, you can look to friends, you can look to neighbors, you can look to people in your faith community, or there are elder attorneys that will sometimes fit that bill, or they'll know of a health advocate that will do that for a fee, and they can help you. You should always have one person that's going to be your surrogate and a backup. So in case that person's, are we taking questions now?
We're gonna
At the end.
jot it down, okay? Thanks.
So once these two steps are completed, then what you need to do is make sure that you distribute that advance directive. So your proxies need to have that. They should have it in their possession. You can even make a video of it that, very quickly. You can use your own cell phone and you can say, here I am today. I'm going to tell you that if I have a major cardiac event or I have a stroke and I'm not me and I'm not going to be me, do not let me go to a skilled nursing facility. I don't want to be there. See if you can get me home, make sure nobody provides me hydration and nutrition, and let me die. So you can provide a video, but those people need to have your advance directive. Your primary care physician needs to have your advance directive. Sometimes family members that aren't in agreement with you, it's kind of important to give them your advance directive and say, here it is. I've made Uncle Billy in charge because you will not follow this stuff. So do not at my deathbed fight with Uncle Billy. And so that they know what it is you want. And then if you're seeing a physician, a specialist that may be involved in your end of care, then they need to have it. If you're seeing an oncologist or a cardiologist that's not your primary, they should have it. And then you need to re-examine your advance directive. And there's 5 Ds. So every decade, at least, you should re-examine your advance directive. Because we should have an advance directive as soon as we're an adult. So every decade thereafter, it should be examined. Because what you said you wanted at 30 may not be what you think you want at 70. And then if there's a death of a loved one, because that loved one may have been your proxy. Oops, all of a sudden, I don't have a proxy. So in my situation, I had my husband as my number 1 and my best friend as my number 2, and they died within 2 years of each other. I suddenly had no proxy. And then if you get divorced, same thing. You may have made your spouse. Well, they better not be making decisions for you. And then if you get a serious diagnosis or you have a decline in your health, you should re-examine your advance directive and make sure that it says what it is you want.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to move on to hospice, and I'm going to ask Judy to share a bit about exactly what hospice is.
Hospice, yeah, okay. Hospice. So hospice is, in the modern sense, a program that is a Medicare benefit, and it again has an eligibility requirement. You have to have a life expectancy of 6 months or less. So people dealing with terminal illness, whatever it may be. Medicare has a number of diagnoses that will fit: end-stage heart disease, end-stage lung disease, end-stage liver disease, metastatic cancer. And I think there are 6 or 7 altogether. They may have added a few. And anyway, so if you qualify, and oftentimes you'll be referred by your primary care physician or by the oncologist or whoever is taking care of you for this medical condition, thinking that if things go normally, you might be expected to die within 6 months, and then you can elect the hospice benefit. Now, most of the people that I've seen are Medicare beneficiaries, and there's a very clear-cut benefit. But if you have private insurance, if you're a younger person with private health insurance, they also have hospice benefits as well. And Medi-Cal pays for hospice care. When you sign up for hospice, I know I've had people think that I'm coming with a black bag and full of morphine, and that's going to be it. But that's not true. Oftentimes people, once they get onto hospice and get some support for them or their family, they do better, and some people even graduate, and we have to let them go for a while. So, but once you are on hospice, you have the services of a nurse who actually becomes the eyes and ears of your family physician. Your physician can still stay involved. Oftentimes they like to defer to the hospice team and the hospice physician because they're not so comfortable prescribing medication. The primary goal of hospice is comfort care. So comfort care in whatever that requires. Usually, it can be medication or adjustment of medication for pain. Any symptoms that you might experience, like nausea or shortness of breath, or pain is probably predominant. And so they're experts at that. And you have the services of a social worker who can put help in your home if you need it, or if you need to be transferred to you can't be at home and you need a facility, they can help you with accessing that. You have a home health aide who can come and help bathe you a couple of times a week. A chaplain or a spiritual care person, so that part of your life is not ignored. And volunteers. Hospice has lots of volunteers who go to the home or wherever you might be. Hospice can take place at home. Predominantly that's where it is, at home. If you're in a nursing home, it can be there. If you are in a board and care, or if you're in assisted living, all those places you can have hospice.
Did they let you come to a hospital at all? Or?
Yeah, a hospice, I can speak to the Medicare benefit. There are 4 levels. There are just general, which is where people are when they're at home. That's general care. There's something called crisis care, which can occur at home, but the hospice will provide, hours of a nurse being there to, oftentimes it involves regulating medication or getting somebody comfortable. And then there is general inpatient care, meaning you would need to be in a hospital if with what's going on, needing 24-hour surveillance or management, and usually it's management of symptoms. And so that can occur in the hospital. That's called general inpatient care. Here in northern San Diego County, we're lucky enough to have Pacifica House. So oftentimes people who would normally might need to be in the hospital can go to Pacifica House to have those symptoms monitored. And then the 4th kind of care that Medicare provides is the hospice benefit, is respite care. So if you are somebody who's caring for a loved one at home and you need a break, you can have, I think it's 5 days every 2 months, that they will take your family member and place them somewhere so that you can get a break. And, sometimes 6 months, people surpass the 6-month mark date all the time, and sometimes it can go into several years that people are on hospice. So that's hospice.
So share with us, is there a cost involved, or is it free? How's hospice work?
Hospice is part of your Medicare benefit. It comes out of a different pot of money, but there is no charge for any of these services. There's no charge for supplies that you may need. There's no charge for equipment. If you need a hospital bed or a wheelchair, oxygen, any durable medical equipment that you might need, there's no charge for any of that. Sometimes there can be, medications can be an issue, but not often. So anyway, it's a wonderful benefit. What often happens is people take advantage of it too late. They wait too long. You might have 5 days on hospice when you would have benefited from starting months ago, because it's so helpful to the family to stabilize things, and it just makes people much more comfortable.
So Judy, real quickly, because we're a little short on time, and we'll want to go on to the next. But I always thought there was just one hospice, but there's like different types of hospice, or how do you find which hospice group you want to call?
Well, you do need to shop. There is and I can give this to you later, I don't have it with me, but Medicare has on their website, they have a way that you can look at the different hospices in your locale and compare them, because they've been rated by family members particularly, so it's like a 5-star system, and it's amazing how many not 5 stars there are, because I looked at this yesterday myself. There's a lot of 3s, even the one I work for, but anyway, there is a way to look, and you need to try, you're the consumer, so don't forget that. You need to try them out. If you don't like them, go on, find another one, or word of mouth too.
Thank you. So Jody, we're going to go on to you. Could you tell us some of the different funeral options and what some of the newer options are?
Absolutely. If you guys need me to speak up, let me know. Otherwise, I'll consider this good. We have a lot of options in California. As of 2022, one of the things that has become available is what's called aquamation. It's a water cremation. The benefits of that are the lack of a carbon footprint that you get with a traditional cremation. However, it's still fairly new, so that makes it fairly expensive. We just recently had legislation signed to allow compostable burials. While it will be allowed, it is currently not legal in California and will be legal by 2027. We try not to use words like good or bad or appropriate or traditional or anything like that, because every life is unique, and that means every death is unique. And you know your relation and what you would like to see happen for them. So the best advice I can give you is, like we were talking about before, the highest form of respect that you can show someone is to follow their wishes after they're no longer here to see it done. So one of the options that funeral services offer is a pre-need. Can I speak on that?
Go ahead, please do.
So I'm going to tell you a little story about how I found out about a pre-need. My father had crossed over and left me in charge of my mother. And she'd had a stroke, so it was hard for her to move around. So I thought, I'm going to take her on a cruise and we'll talk about things, and that'll be great. So we had a wonderful time, and at the end of the cruise, I went to settle up, and there was a $1,700 bar bill. So I went and talked to the person in charge, and I said, I think there's a mistake, because my mother doesn't drink.
Should it just be further away?
So
We're going to switch this out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Check one,
yeah.
two, this
All
one
right.
works.
Try that one.
Turn that one off
Yeah.
and turn this one on.
This one works.
Oh, okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I go to talk to the purser or whoever it was, and I explained, this is my mom's name, but she doesn't drink, and this is not her charge. And so that man looked at me with all seriousness and said, there are many things about our parents that we don't know. And me, because I overthink everything, thought, you know what? I don't know what my mom wants. So I started doing research, and that's how I found out about a pre-need. Now, what a pre-need is something that you can go to any licensed funeral company, and you can arrange before you die what you want to have happen. Not only that, and this speaks to the very frugal family that I came from, you pay for it up front and the cost doesn't change. So if you want something done, let's say you want a burial at sea, and you want to have 12 people on that boat, and you want to have them have food or whatever it is that you want, you arrange that yourself. And because you are the primary, the one that is executing this legal document, once you have crossed over, it can't be changed. So if you do it now, say in 10 years, you need it, your family is spared a lot of arguments. Because even though we may think we know everything about our parents, we don't. And even though we think our kids are going to follow what we want, my experience has been that's not always the case. So this is something that works very well. Arrange it yourself, pay for it, the cost doesn't go up, there's no argument, and it really is a wonderful, I think Janet, you said it's a wonderful gift that you can give your family. And that can be a legacy, because who knew that, what people wanted? And it is a difficult conversation, not in my family or in Indian culture, we talk about that because we have relations that are in spirit, and they're often referred to kind of like people in France. We know they're there. We don't interact with them, but we know they're there. So for us, it's something that we grow up hearing about, talking about, and being involved with. It's not scary. It's perfectly natural. We all go that way. And we are taught that you are close to Creator twice in your life. Once when you get here, and once when you go back. So for us, that makes it a sacred conversation.
It's a beautiful way to put it. I have one more real quick question, if you'll share with it. My father is at Fort Rosecrans Cemetery, which is a beautiful place. And I know that there are certain benefits being a veteran. Could you just real quickly share those?
I think the best way to describe that is my father was a wartime veteran, and he got his coupon book when he was discharged. And in that coupon book, it says you are entitled to space in a national cemetery and a headstone, or space on a warship for a sea burial. Anything outside of space on a warship or space in a national cemetery is the responsibility of the family. So pickup, viewing, service, cremation, casket, container, any of that, flowers, those are all responsibilities of the family. One thing I will mention is that they're doing, anyone that's a veteran and wants to stay in the area here, Miramar is doing great expansion. And one of the things about Miramar is they have set aside over 100 acres as a wildlife preserve because there are indigenous species in San Diego that they're protecting. So if you go to that cemetery and you walk around, you see how it's designed around these vernal pools and different places that are wildlife habitats. And so for me, that is really wonderful because it's something in perpetuity that is honoring not only our relations and our servicemen, but also the land.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our question and answer period. Rick, how are the microphones? Am I giving my microphone to people to pass around? Okay. All right. Does anyone have questions? I know you would like to start with your question, Steve?
These aren't actually questions. I just wanted to share regarding what Janet said about the advance directive. We have, you mentioned the proxies, the person who represents. Sandra and I are both proxies for each other, but we have a secondary directive. We were thinking, well, we don't have kids. We do have other, who can we get who's likely to be around when we're both gone to be our proxy? And we chose a professional fiduciary who's also the executor, whatever you call it, trustee of our trust. And she is legally bound to present our needs in a case like that. So that's an idea for some people. The other thing I was going to mention is I recently discovered that you cannot put an IRA in a trust. Your IRA, you specify the beneficiaries in the IRA itself, and that's what controls who that money goes to. But you can't put an IRA in a trust. That's it.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, I'm going to go back to the euthanasia issue. How is it enforced? In other words, does there have to be a witness? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Does there have to be a witness so that somebody else doesn't push the plunger? How does that work?
Who would like to take that on?
I can tell you that the physicians are not going to assist. So the people, the medical professionals that may be at bedside at the time of death, now they may find some workarounds. For instance, they'll go to great lengths. Maybe an ALS patient doesn't have the physical function to push a plunger, but they may still have neck control. So they'll kink the flow of the tube and put it underneath their chin, and when they're ready to go, they put their head back and the flow starts. So
That's not my question. Is let's say that my daughter's the only person in the room, and she pushes the plunger. Does there have to be a witness to?
No, there doesn't have to be somebody there. That's between her and the great beyond. Yeah, that's her conscience.
So it's not really.
Because believe me, I thought about calling on my veterinary friends, my husband's veterinary friends, to come and provide him euthanasia when he was in a coma for 6 months, or for 6 days. I also thought we had the medication. I thought about giving it to him myself, but I heard him in my head say, baby, don't do that. Don't put yourself in jeopardy. Don't do anything to jeopardize the law. Just, this is the circumstance I'm in.
I have a question.
Wait, they'll bring you a microphone, okay?
Thank you.
I wanted to know the differences between hospice and palliative care, and when do you choose each?
Well, palliative care generally is for anyone who has a serious illness. So if, I don't know, tomorrow I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I would of course, get referred to an oncologist, but I would also ask for a palliative care referral. Because palliative care, it's becoming more well known now, but palliative care deals with symptom management, and they deal with the big picture. My oncologist is going to look at the cancer and how he can treat it. He's not going to look at me or my life or how the disease is impacting me. And that's what the palliative care team can do. Oftentimes, they're located within a hospital setting in a clinic. There are palliative care physicians, and that precedes hospice. Because with hospice, you have to be into comfort care, so no active treatment. In other words, you're in the terminal phase of your illness. But with palliative care, you can get any treatment that your doctor wants. So you can still be, having radiation or chemotherapy or whatever they think is appropriate for you. And, if Medicare is the payer, it's coming out of your Part B Medicare, and no limits on that. But the palliative care person can help, or the team can help you to know when it's appropriate to move on to hospice. So oftentimes, many of the hospices have both. They'll have a palliative care branch, and then they know when to refer people, when it looks like they're in the terminal phase, there's nothing more that can be done. But they're all concerned about symptom management, because that's what makes it so hard to live with long-term treatment if you have a chronic condition or a really serious condition. So that's the difference of the two. And palliative care is a really good program to be involved in if you have an illness. Anybody who has an illness should ask for a serious illness that requires a lot of attention on your part, changes in your life. Palliative care person can really help you deal with that, because they're looking at you, the whole you. So does that help?
You have a question here?
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Jody. Jody, if you already have, let's say, a funeral plot for your son, and you are Catholic, so you're going to work with the church, do you coordinate all these different people if we call to ask about thinking ahead and doing a funeral in the future?
Yes, we do. We work with different ethnicities and different cultural backgrounds, and we try to arrange everything as much as possible to your wishes. So again, so that there's no question at time of need that we have everything taken care of. And there are, in the same way that there are variations between different services within the Catholic religion, we try to tailor everything to find out what it is that you want. And part of doing that is being a liaison between the church of your choice, the priest, the bereavement committee at the church. All of that is taken care of and discussed and put into place.
That's very helpful. And also, this is a financial part of the question, since you did mention that if you have this funeral at sea, it's all paid for ahead of time. If you are the liaison among the different agencies, does the plan also include a fixed price that won't change 10 years from now?
That is correct. With the pre-need, the price that you pay covers everything that's within the contract that you have signed. If you need it tomorrow, the price doesn't change. If you need it in 10 years, the price does not change. The money is held in an escrow account. After services are rendered, then it's funded to the provider.
Thank you very much, it's very helpful.
Well, I'm interested in what's going on, what changes are, should we be looking at with respect to dementia and medical aid in dying. Is there any integration with those two? Because you have to be of sound mind, and that's the dilemma. Thank you.
Ed, you come talk to me. So, yeah. So A Better Exit, the group that I'm one of the founding directors, we are trying right now to work to expand the law in 3 specific ways. We want to remove the 6-month criterion. We're the only country in the world that providing medical aid in dying that does that, except for New Zealand and Australia, but their physicians are actually leading to get rid of that terminal 6-month criterion. We want there to be an injectable option. It could still be self-administered, but we'd like for there to be an injectable option for all these people, for all these workarounds that physicians have to figure out to have somebody that otherwise is eligible be able to self-administer. And we'd like for those who are in the early to mid stages of dementia, who otherwise make all their medical health decisions, be able to be assessed by 2 physicians. If those physicians feel that they are of sound mind and know the consequences of what they're asking for, that they go ahead and be allowed to have medical aid in dying. Because right now those folks are finding other lives. They're going to Switzerland, which will provide them a peaceful death. They're voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. Everybody seems to think that's fine. It's going to take 10 days to 2 weeks. The end result is still the same. They're going to be dead. So why not allow them medical aid in dying?
Let's say you've been diagnosed for 6 months or less, and your desire is to have hospice. In the circumstance that you may have been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live, and your desire is to have hospice. However, you live alone, and I know all hospices do not have inpatient facilities or care. Can someone come in from hospice to your home if you don't have a permanent caregiver there with you?
That's one thing that hospice does not take care of. They don't provide any, continuous care for someone to be with you 24 hours a day or even 8 hours a day. Is that what you mean?
No, I wasn't asking for 24-hour care or even 8 hours a day. I'm just saying, if you're on your own, if you have your diagnosis, but you're still caring for yourself to a certain extent, can they come visit you in your home?
Yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, the nurse, the nurse, you will have a nurse, and she's kind of the case manager. So she would visit you at least once a week to find out what's going on, be in touch with your doctor or the hospice doctor. That's traditional. That's what happens. And then as far as other assistance is concerned, if you need, for safety reasons, you need help bathing or transferring, you have the services of a home health aide. That's usually, maybe 3 times a week. And then the social worker can also help you to find care that you might have to pay for out of pocket.
Sure, that's completely
understandable. Yeah, if you need somebody like to grocery shop or to be there 4 hours or, some people need nighttime help. It just depends.
Depending on how things went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Was there another question over here? Oh, over here, okay.
Yes, this is for Jody. I've been recently exploring burials for my parents. My father was a Navy veteran, and he had a burial at sea, but we retained half of his ashes. And now my mother's 92, she's been hospitalized for about almost 3 months now. And she's actually from Japan, but I want to bury them together, cremate her. And I recently found out that Fort Rosecrans is closed, except for some certain circumstances, but they said my mother could be buried at Miramar. So, but the problem is, I have to get some sort of a burial permit or something because my father has already been buried at sea, but there's still the remaining half. So they said, well, your mother can be buried there. So I'm thinking, oh, should I commingle the ashes? And they said, no. I don't know, and I don't know how soon you need to make arrangements. Can I make arrangements for her burial, at least there, or a niche or something?
That's a really good question, and yes, Rosecrans is closed right now. All national cemeteries are required to provide space for soldiers killed during service and line of duty. So if you do see a burial sometimes at a national cemetery that's closed, it will be for that reason, or it will be because, much like a pre-need, people have reserved space. So you can contact Miramar and you can reserve a space, a niche, or what's called an inurnment, which is an in-ground cremation burial. And your parents can go together. As far as the permit of disposition is what it's called, the permit that you have, which is accompanying your father's ashes right now, it's a matter of just getting a new one that shows the resting place rather than, I'm guessing, your residence. It will be at Miramar. And that's something that you can do yourself at the county. I think it costs $12, or you can contact a funeral business and they will do it for you, but they'll charge you more. But I'll tell you, San Diego County is really nice. The people there are super nice. And if you explain what you need and talk to Miramar, they can talk you through it as long as you have the original, which I know you are by law required to have, the permit of disposition with the ashes that you currently have. So yeah, you can prearrange it. And Miramar is really turning out to be a beautiful place, so you might just want to go and drive around and take a look at the vernal pools. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is there another person?
Hi, I don't know who to ask. Is that any, you hear me? All right, so my question is, if I'm not feeling well, sick in hospital or at home or whatever, and I don't want to choose way to die, but I want to die natural, and I don't want to, and I also don't want drugs to prolong my life. So here I'm in the middle. And if I don't choose to die, and yet I have some illness, is it the job of the medical team to comfort me at that point from my pain and things like that? And eventually I will die, even from medication, a side effect of the painkillers. Isn't that also a way to choose to die? I don't want to write it, oh, this is how I want, but if I want to say, under circumstance when I am sick, leave me alone, just comfort me, and that's all. During my pain issues, whatever. Isn't that also my right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's, I mean, you know, we're talking about all different things, but that's what we call a natural death. And that's how we've all been dying forever. So, you know, hospice is fairly new. So, yes, you know, you get to die however you want. But in the situation you described, hospice would be really helpful. Because that's their goal, is to have you be comfortable with, you know, with or without medication. Some people refuse medication. So, yes, you can do that.
Thank you so much.
Susan?
Okay. Hey, okay, so say that I get dementia later on in life. but say that I've been diagnosed with something and say that I've got like the right to die, because I know Oregon has that, now this has here, but what if like I got the medication and then I got dementia? Can they come back and take the medicine away? Sorry. Sorry.
Okay. So if you have dementia and your sole diagnosis is dementia, it doesn't matter what state you're in the United States, you will not qualify for medical aid in time.
No, I meant like if I already had the medicine.
Okay, well you
How
have.
would they come back and take it away if I had dementia? If I got it out?
If you already have the medication,
Yeah.
no, nobody's going to take it away from you. You qualified at that time. It's probably not very likely that within 6 months of your death that you're going to suddenly develop dementia.
Okay.
You might become confused. You know, your electrolytes might get out of balance, and you might, from your disease, and you might get confused. But they don't take medication back.
Okay. Thank you.
In fact, my husband, who didn't utilize it, I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, what do I do with this medication? Took it to the Encinitas Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
Hi, that idea of having a advanced directive that is staged, say we're talking about dementia, and you can request certain treatment, and then the next stage you can change it. Is there really definitive stages of dementia that you can tie that to? Having watched people with dementia, you know, it's like, you know, one day they're worse than the other, or, you know, how do you know that? If you follow.
Yes, there are different stages of dementia. And so the Compassion and Choices that has a dementia directive just breaks it down into early, mid, and late stages of dementia. And so, but your medical team is going to know what stage you're in. And so at that point, then they follow that portion of the directive.
No.
One last question, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, late stage dementia is a hospice qualifying diagnosis, but what it looks like is that you're in a wheelchair, probably nonverbal, having a hard time sitting up, you know, holding up your head. So, you know, trying to think about these things in the early stages is to your advantage. The problem is that you may be losing time to live, because you're having to choose early, hence the reason to change the law. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
If you have to choose to die early, because dementia can go on for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years. You can be cutting off years of your life by having, you know, by choosing to end your life in the early stages when you could probably legally do it, instead of waiting till you get to the end stage when you can't really consent to anything.
We're going to have one last question, and please, if you have more questions or they were too personal and you didn't want to ask out here, the panelists have agreed to be out on the patio, and you can go up and chat with them. So let's go ahead and have the last question.
Does this work? Thank you for putting this on. I had no idea California finally did do an end to life right. I think you said only 500 people a couple of years ago, and now 800 have utilized this in all of California? Is that because it's difficult?
We are a state of 40 million people, and we've had, in 2022, 850 people utilize medical aid and die, and there were about 1,200 prescriptions written. By comparison, Canada, which has a much more progressive law, the same year, 2022, they had 10,000 people who utilized medical aid and died. So in my opinion, our law is much too restrictive, and it needs to expand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks for your work.
I appreciate you being here. Before you pack up, please pull the yellow sheet, fill it out, If you'd like to come to one of the future events, there's a place on there that you can check that. And you can leave the evaluation forms on on your desk there, or you can bring it out. And I wanted to let you know, I wrote this for you guys, and there's a flyer out in front that you can grab it. But I want you to walk into the best year of your life. I'm not going to see you again before the holidays are over. And so I have a flyer out in front. If you didn't pick it up, please pick it up. And I challenge you to take on something new in this new year. So thank you for being here. I'm so impressed that each of you have come today and are educating yourself on this. Thank you.